So the war ended, not in a cool explosion type way, but more like everyone just lost and now we're pretending it's completely fine. This is Collapsing World Rise of Radicalism. And today we'll be playing as Ukraine. Now Ukraine doesn't start in a very good spot. In this 1933 scenario, the country is being run by an anarchist government under Nestor Makhno. The economy is basically non-existent, there's no real planning or command structure, and honestly, no one's entirely sure how this whole anarchism thing is supposed to really work. We also have a buttload of debt which we probably won't ever be able to pay back. So with Soviet backing, Makhno seized Ukraine, but unity never really followed. There were various factions vying for power. What began as a revolution soon risked becoming a civil war. And as if it wasn't enough, Bakker decided this was also the perfect time to start feeling unwell. His entire cabinet was actually revolting against him. And our leader? He surprisingly wasn't scared at all. Something is definitely brewing behind the scenes. Since the civil war, Makhno had ruled from his office in Kiev. Now with his government close to collapse, he left in secret to Chernihiv. Makhno's speech ended in silence. Makhno was struck from behind and died before thousands of witnesses. Now with Makhno dead, we had 3 successors to choose from, so we could either pick Fyodor, Shush, Maria, Nikiforova, or Yarchuk. So we'd now have this funny guy with a funny hat and mustache show up, so yeah, I guess everything is all cool with Ukraine at the moment. Until the nationalists in the west decide to rise up. Minsk was the first to take advantage of the government's anarchy and raise pro-Ukrainian liberation forces in the western regions. And next, Shumsky's communists rise up in the east. So Moscow's not missed their chance in backing the uprising of pro-communist Shumsky in the east, and they've got quite a substantial support. And if things couldn't get any more ridiculous, scroll up, Patsky rises in the south. Yeah, the whites have returned to the lands of Ukraine. Yep, the Russian Empire is back. So we only had 15 divisions in total. Our front line was way too big, and we didn't have enough divisions to actually cover every single tile, so we're quite vulnerable. However, we did have a few focuses to complete in our focus tree, which might provide us with some form of buffs. Secure some territory in the Ukrainian Civil War, and it turns out the Markov volunteer groups have arrived. So Sergei Markov, Kornilov and Denikin has arrived with 5 divisions to help us out. I primarily focused on the Ukraine in the north and the nationalists, encircle Kiev, and finish off the divisions in the north before I went off to finish the other factions. Alright, so we finished the Russification of our army off, so next we were going to try to get another focus, and yeah, we're going to gain some fighters, the Black Witches, which I'm pretty sure are female pilots, which were in the Soviet Union, but instead, I think they're in Ukraine in this timeline for some reason. Alright, so with the Second Republic of Ukraine and the Communist Ukraine in the east defeated, we could now focus on the last remnants against us, the Green Army. Then we managed to finish off the Green Army. We're known as Malorussia, and we're led by Ilyin, which, needs to say, he did some pretty terrible things. And then after the Civil War, Ilyin did a speech. I'm not reading it, it's very long for some reason. Now this event came up talking about the remnants of the anarchist underground, so we had to sort out this resistance on this new GUI which appeared on my decisions tab, and if I didn't deal with the resistance, we might get a second civil war happening. We have some very overpowered political advisors. The only problem is we only have 2 research slots, but the political advisors themselves gives us research speed, so I guess that's a bit of an offset at least. So yes, I would have this interesting pop-up show up which said basically if I had not finished off the resistance in 1,000 days, this special military operation would essentially fail. So what I'm doing at the moment is just simply building up, completing a bit of my focus tree to get a few more national spirits, which will help me. And I started justifying on my neighbour to my west, Polish Belarus, because obviously they're going to come after me later, so I may as well finish them off early while they're weak. Little did I know how much this would later brick the game. However, our military operation in Poland and Belarus was quite successful. I did have to micromanage the front quite a bit and get a few encirclements to thin them out. They didn't really have many divisions, but they had enough to fill out the front line, so if I could get a few encirclements off, it would mean I would be able to walk into empty tiles and then capitulate them, since they haven't got much equipment to field more manpower anyway. Poland and Belarus capitulated way too easily. I only had to take Belarus to actually capitulate both Poland and Belarus. So that is kind of cool. I didn't have to walk further. Like, this is literally all I had to take. And now Malorussia is much larger. The only downside to this is we obviously don't have calls on Poland, we don't have calls on Belarus, but we can gain compliance. And if we can gain compliance, it means we'll be able to use that manpower of that land. In the meantime, I have quite number of days before my eventual civil war happens, so I decided to justify manually on a few more of my neighbours, which include first a bit of the Baltics and a bit of Poland. And first we decided to go into Poland. Now it didn't go as well as I expected to. We did get quite stalled a bit and we were running out of equipment. We didn't get enough equipment from our factories. Our manpower were actually running quite low in our divisions on the front. We didn't have much supply. But in the end, we managed to pull off quite a few encirclements, and we just managed to pull through with the skin of our teeth, I think. Alright, well that's the rest of Poland capitulated. So that's great. It's going to help us with our industry, and obviously we can have access to the manpower later because we'll be able to build compliance. And it's just more land, and, you know, more land means obviously the enemy has to walk way more tiles to actually get to our capital, which is always a benefit. Now, with the Civil War only 250 days away, I wondered if I could get a few more justifications, mainly in Estonia and Latvia, which are basically like the last nations I wanted to take near me. Yeah, looking at the paths, they seem very larpery, and yeah, this is just why is this? Why is this in my decisions tab? But whatever. Yeah, the second Ukrainian Civil War happened. Really terrible debuff. Like, that's really bad. That's the worst debuff I've ever seen. It completely annihilates our army for a couple of years. So all we can do is kind of just build up now. And yeah, I declare war on Latvia at the same time. So I would be stuck in a proxy war with Latvia for the next 2.5 years, basically. So yeah, if you couldn't tell from that discussion, the game is basically kind of bricked. I have a terrible debuff in which I can't do anything for a couple of years, so I will have to just build up, like I've said before. And everyone around me went into war, so the Soviet Union were at war with Turkestan, Turkestan was at war with Siberia. So the game basically turned into spectator mode for me while I developed my economy and my military further. But yeah, it turns out if you expand as Malorussia and do manual justifications on the nations around you, the Civil War, well, the second Civil War, it kind of breaks. It doesn't work as intended. When my army decided to turn on, we managed to take out Latvia quite easily. Next on our focus was the armed southern forces of Russia, so we were going to declare war on them and try to secure that territory and that nice Baku oil. There's nothing much to really say about the armed forces from Russia. They collapsed like a paper tiger. Turns out we actually have a few unification focuses in our national focus, which I didn't really expect because I didn't know we had any, so I kind of just found it and then started taking that because it only took 35 days to justify, whereas manually justifying would take about 110, so we're saving about 70-ish days of justification time. So next we would go to war with Georgia and Armenia, which Armenia has taken a lot of the Ottoman territory, so we're getting that for free as well, which is quite nice. And like all the others, Armenia and Georgia will collapse. And yeah, we are looking pretty huge now. All our enemies left is just pretty much Russia. Like, we need to take back our cause, obviously, in the east. Now, I was going to go after Romania to secure the oil, because I didn't think there was any faction, and I didn't think there was also guaranteed by anybody, but also the Czechs decided to simultaneously declare war on us, so now we had this massive front to deal with. And it wasn't only the Czechs we had to deal with, we also had to deal with all the French, and the French faction, the Axis of Reaction, which was a huge faction. They have millions of manpower, they got lots of factories to work with. But at the moment, we were going to focus all our attention on Romania and try and secure that oil, and trying to surprise attack the Czechs, and maybe try to capitulate Hungary from behind, and just try to hold. Like, we got to hold. We haven't got enough divisions to hold, we haven't got enough equipment to hold. I decided to create a Romanian puppet, a Banat puppet, as well as a Transylvania puppet, because I wanted them to get some manpower out in the field and also produce me some units. And I also wanted their industry and their resource rights, which would help fund my air force later on. Now, it was no exaggeration to say that this war was an absolute slogfest, because the French had about 10 divisions per tile earlier in the war, as well as the British, which ended up joining, and I would be constantly naval invaded. I would be able to defeat those divisions, so they would have less divisions to work with, which they could put on the front line. They're losing equipment themselves, and they're losing manpower, so we would slowly gain the upper hand. And I was confident I'd be able to start battle planning them, and their front lines would start collapsing like a house of cards. I'd start overrunning many divisions. My infantry army would storm them. They had little left to stop us. And like that, we would knock both the British and the French from the Balkans. And now, we could focus our full attention on the east. On July 29, 1941, Ilyich formally declared war on the Russian Turkestan government. Lands were considered, of course, meaning full access to the manpower and the factories from the moment we took it. The campaign was far easier than what I originally expected, so it became rather a quick war since I didn't have to deal with the supply issues and the resistance growing in the states, and the manpower, which we'll just gain from capturing villages and cities, will just go to our pool, and Turkestan will lose that manpower and those factories, meaning they get weaker and we get stronger. So the absolutely terrible news is I had to push all the way to the Urals, but the good news is we managed to destroy much of that army beforehand, so there wasn't really much force to stop us. I had to somehow now take out France and Britain, and well, there's a few options I could take. I could either go to the south, in Italy, or I could go on to the north, through Germany. Yes, I know, right? Around Germany to get to France. It's around the Maginot, but on a much, much bigger scale, but that's what I did anyway, and it was rather cool. The Germans crumbled underneath our superior air force and army, so weren't really prepared for war. And then, once we capitulated them, we'd be able to focus our full attention on the Benelux and France. France was actually kind of holding out. Despite the French's best efforts, I was able to push through the Maginot. My main offensive was through the Maginot. With the French taken out, we'd focus all our attention on Britain. who was the last one standing between us winning this damn war, which I don't have a navy for to actually invade them. South Africa was also a major, so I was using the console for that. I'm not going to South Africa, guys. I'm not doing it. Eventually, with the air spams it and we managed to get a bit of a navy out, we were able to invade Great Britain. Because the British kept constantly trying to invade me in the Baltics while I was invading Russia and Czechoslovakia many years ago, basically have no divisions left. We were able to land quite easily. And once we got the landing and the port, we were able to push up, despite the British best efforts to obviously defeat us. So with this war over, and with little left to do, this is where I think I'm going to end the campaign. It's been a pretty short one, but I've had fun doing it. This type of content is new for me, this narration stuff, so, you know, we're gonna slowly get a bit better at it over time. I also fixed my mic partway through. And yeah, let me know if you've enjoyed the video or not. I think I'm gonna start covering my A to Z series a lot more. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.